Most people lose their power long before they lose an argument. They lose it in the exact moment they feel the need to react. Someone insults them, and they immediately fight back. Someone questions their decisions, and they rush to explain themselves. Someone disrespects them, and they spend hours trying to prove their worth. It feels like the right thing to do, but it quietly places their emotional state in someone else's hands. The truth is simple. If another person can control your reactions, they have already gained control over you. That is why one of the greatest forms of strength is learning 3 simple habits that almost no one can master. Never react, never explain, and just ignore. People often believe that silence is weakness because society teaches us to always have an answer. We are told to defend our reputation, justify our choices, and respond to every accusation. But notice something about people who constantly explain themselves. The more they speak, the less convincing they become. Every unnecessary explanation sends an invisible message that says, I need your approval to feel secure. Truly confident people do not waste their energy trying to convince everyone that they are right. They understand that people will believe what they want to believe, regardless of how many words are spoken. The same principle applies to emotional reactions. There are people who will deliberately provoke you not because they want the truth, but because they want your attention. They know that if they can make you angry, frustrated, or defensive, they have interrupted your focus. The argument itself is never the victory. Your reaction is the moment you abandon your peace to satisfy someone else's challenge. You begin playing by their rules instead of your own. Think about how often unnecessary conflicts begin. One careless comment, one sarcastic message, one disrespectful opinion. Suddenly, an entire day is consumed by proving a point that will change nothing. Hours are wasted replaying conversations, writing long messages, defending intentions, and seeking justice from people who were never interested in understanding you. In the end, nothing meaningful is gained except exhaustion. Meanwhile, the person who provoked you has already moved on while you continue carrying the emotional weight. This is exactly why ignoring is so powerful. Ignoring is not pretending something never happened. Ignoring is making a conscious decision that your peace is worth more than someone else's opinion. It is refusing to donate your time, your emotions, and your attention to people who have done nothing to deserve them. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Every person who succeeds in stealing it also steals a portion of your energy. That is why wise people become extremely selective about what they choose to notice. There is another reason you should never rush to explain yourself. Explanations rarely change people who have already decided how they want to see you. Someone committed to misunderstanding, you will twist every sentence you speak. The more you explain, the more material they have to criticize. Instead of ending the conflict, you often feed it. Sometimes your silence communicates more confidence than 1,000 carefully chosen words ever could. Silence tells people that your identity does not depend on their agreement. This does not mean accepting disrespect or allowing others to walk over you. It means understanding the difference between responding with purpose and reacting out of emotion. A response comes from control. A reaction comes from impulse. One strengthens your position. The other exposes your emotions. Powerful people choose their responses carefully, but they refuse to react simply because someone expects them to. Imagine someone throwing bait into the water, hoping a fish will bite. Every insult, every rumor, every unnecessary criticism is bait. Most people bite immediately because their ego cannot tolerate being ignored. But the person who swims past the bait cannot be caught. They remain free because they understand that not every challenge deserves an answer and not every opinion deserves a place in their mind. As you move through life, remember this simple principle. Every time you refuse to react, every time you refuse to explain, and every time you choose to ignore what does not deserve your attention, you protect something far more valuable than your reputation. You protect your inner peace, your focus, and your power. And once you understand the hidden strength behind emotional control, the next step is learning why explaining yourself often destroys the very respect you are trying to earn. The moment you feel the need to explain yourself, pause for a second and ask one simple question. Who are you really trying to convince? Most of the time, it is not someone who genuinely wants to understand you. It is someone who has already formed an opinion and is simply waiting for you to justify yourself. This is where countless people unknowingly lose their influence. They believe that if they provide enough reasons, enough evidence, or enough words, they can change another person's perception. But confidence is rarely built through explanation. More often, it is weakened by it. People who constantly explain themselves usually do it for one reason. They fear being misunderstood. They want everyone to see their good intentions. They want every decision to make sense in the eyes of others. While this desire is understandable, it creates a dangerous habit. Instead of living according to their own values, they begin living according to other people's opinions. Every choice requires approval. Every action requires justification. Every criticism demands a defense. Before long, they are no longer leading their own lives. They are managing other people's perceptions. The strongest individuals understand a truth that many never accept. You cannot control how people interpret you. Someone determined to dislike you will find a reason. Even if you explain yourself perfectly, someone committed to misunderstanding, you will twist your words until they fit the story they already believe. The more you talk, the more opportunities you give them to question, criticize, or distort your message. This is why endless explanations often create more confusion instead of more respect. Think about the people who naturally command attention. They do not announce their value every day. They do not constantly remind everyone how honest, intelligent, or hardworking they are. Their actions quietly build a reputation that words could never achieve. They understand that real authority grows from consistency, not from convincing speeches about who they are. When your actions remain steady over time, they become your explanation. Nothing is more persuasive than a life that reflects what you claim to believe. This does not mean you should never communicate or clarify genuine, misunderstandings. There are moments when honest conversations strengthen relationships and resolve problems. But there is a significant difference between communicating with purpose and explaining yourself out of fear. One comes from confidence. The other comes from insecurity. Confident people explain only when it serves a meaningful purpose. Insecure people explain because they cannot tolerate someone thinking badly of them. There is another hidden danger in constant explanation. It teaches people that they can demand access to your private decisions whenever they choose. Every time someone questions your choices and you immediately justify yourself, you reinforce the idea that they are entitled to an answer. Over time, this creates an unhealthy pattern. People begin expecting explanations for your boundaries, your priorities, your ambitions, and even your personal happiness. But your life is not a courtroom where every decision requires a defense. Notice how people react when they receive no unnecessary explanation. At first, they may become uncomfortable. They may push harder, ask more questions, or even become frustrated. Why? Because they expected control. They expected you to chase their approval. When you remain calm instead, something changes. They begin realizing that your confidence is not dependent on their agreement. That realization often earns more respect than any carefully prepared argument ever could. This is where the first lesson becomes even more powerful. If someone criticizes you, there is no need to react emotionally. If someone misunderstands your intentions, there is no need to explain every detail of your thinking. And if someone continues judging you despite your silence, sometimes the wisest decision is simply to ignore what cannot be changed. These three habits strengthen one another. When you stop reacting impulsively, you stop feeling the urge to explain. And when you stop explaining everything, it becomes much easier to ignore opinions that have no real value. Your energy is limited. Every unnecessary explanation drains a little more of it. Every attempt to gain approval takes your attention away from your own growth. The people who achieve extraordinary things understand that their mission is more important than defending themselves against every misunderstanding. They let their discipline speak. They let their results answer questions. They let time reveal the truth. When your actions become stronger than your words, you no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. And that is the moment strategic ignoring becomes one of your greatest sources of strength. By now, you understand that reacting impulsively gives away your power, and constantly explaining yourself weakens your confidence. But there is one final habit that ties these lessons together, and it is often the hardest to practice. That habit is learning to ignore with intention. Most people hear the word ignore and assume it means running away from problems or pretending difficult situations do not exist. In reality, strategic ignoring is not avoidance. It is one of the highest forms of self-control. It is the ability to decide what deserves your attention and, more importantly, what does not. Your attention is one of the most valuable assets you possess. Every single day, countless people, opinions, distractions, and conflicts compete for it. Some want your time, others want your emotions. A few simply want to interrupt your peace. If you respond to every criticism every insult, every rumor, and every unnecessary debate, your life slowly becomes controlled by other people's agendas instead of your own. You may think you are standing up for yourself, but in reality, you are allowing everyone else to decide where your focus goes. This is why truly disciplined people become extremely selective. They understand that every response has a cost. Every argument steals time. Every emotional battle drains energy. Every unnecessary explanation delays progress, instead of asking, "How can I win this argument?" They ask a much more powerful question: is this even worth my attention? Most of the time, the answer is no. Consider how many conflicts disappear the moment you refuse to participate in them. Some people thrive on drama because drama gives them significance. They provoke others, spread negativity, and wait patiently for an emotional reaction. The moment you respond, you give them exactly what they were hoping for, your attention. But when they receive nothing, something unexpected happens. The conversation loses its energy. The conflict begins to fade. Without your participation, many unnecessary battles simply cannot survive. Strategic ignoring also protects you from becoming emotionally exhausted. Imagine carrying a backpack. Every insult you remember, every criticism you replay in your mind, and every opinion you obsess over adds another stone to that backpack. At first, the weight seems manageable, but over months and years, it becomes exhausting. Many people are not tired because life is difficult. They are tired because they refuse to let go of things that never deserve their attention in the first place. Ignoring does not mean you lack courage. In many situations, it requires far more courage than reacting. It takes strength to remain silent when your ego demands revenge. It takes discipline to walk away when someone is trying to provoke you. It takes confidence to continue pursuing your goals while others waste their energy judging you. Anyone can react. Very few people can remain completely unaffected. Of course, strategic ignoring does not mean ignoring genuine responsibilities, important relationships, or serious problems that require action. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. If something helps you grow, face it. If someone offers sincere advice, listen carefully. If a mistake is yours, accept it and improve. But if a person repeatedly brings negativity without adding value, if they criticize without understanding, or if they seek only to disturb your peace, then ignoring becomes an act of self-respect rather than avoidance. This mindset changes the way you move through life. Instead of feeling obligated to answer every message immediately, prove yourself to every critic, or defend yourself against every false assumption, you begin protecting your mental space. You realize that silence is not emptiness, it is protection. Every unnecessary conversation you avoid creates more room for meaningful work. Every distraction you ignore allows your focus to become sharper. Every emotional trap you refuse to enter leaves you stronger than before. The remarkable thing about strategic ignoring is that it often says more than words ever could. People expect resistance. They expect explanations. They expect emotional reactions. When they receive none of these, they are forced to confront something they cannot easily manipulate. Your silence communicates that your priorities are bigger than their opinions. Your focus communicates that your future matters more than temporary conflict. Your calmness communicates a confidence that cannot be manufactured through arguments. As these habits become part of your character, you stop chasing the need to be understood by everyone. You stop measuring your worth through other people's reactions. Instead, you become someone who decides where your energy goes. And that decision quietly transforms every area of your life. And once you master the discipline of ignoring what is meaningless, you begin to discover how silence itself can become one of the most powerful forms of influence. After learning not to react, refusing to explain yourself unnecessarily, and mastering the discipline of strategic ignoring, you arrive at a level that very few people ever reach. This is where silence stops being just a habit and becomes a source of influence. Most people think power comes from speaking louder, arguing better, or always having the last word. Yet, in reality, silence often creates a psychological effect that words never can. When people expect a reaction and receive nothing instead, they are left alone with their own thoughts. And the human mind has a tendency to fill silence with questions. Imagine someone insults you in front of others. They expect you to defend yourself immediately. They expect anger, excuses, or a long explanation, but instead you remain calm. You say nothing. You simply continue with your life. At first, they may feel victorious because they did not receive resistance. But as time passes, something begins to change. They start wondering why you did not react. They begin questioning whether their words even mattered. Suddenly, the certainty they once had is replaced with uncertainty. Your silence becomes louder than any argument you could have made. This is because silence creates mystery, and mystery naturally attracts attention. People are curious about what they cannot easily understand. They become fascinated by those who do not constantly reveal every thought, every emotion, and every intention. Someone who reacts to everything is predictable. Everyone knows exactly which buttons to press. But someone who remains composed is difficult to read. That uncertainty often earns more respect than endless attempts to prove yourself. There is another reason silence is so powerful. Every conversation has an emotional rhythm. When one person attacks and the other attacks back, the conflict grows stronger. Both sides feed the fire. But when one person chooses not to react, the rhythm is broken. The conflict loses momentum because it no longer has two participants. Silence interrupts emotional manipulation. It denies others the satisfaction of controlling your emotions. It sends a clear message without speaking a single word. You do not have the power to disturb my peace. Many people underestimate how uncomfortable silence can be for those seeking attention. Some individuals criticize, provoke, or gossip because they crave a response. The reaction itself becomes their reward. They feel important when they know they have affected someone emotionally. But when you refuse to react, refuse to explain, and simply ignore their attempts to provoke you, they lose the reward they were chasing. Without realizing it, you shift the balance of power. They are no longer influencing you. Instead, they are left wondering why they failed. Silence also protects you from saying words you may later regret. Emotional reactions often disappear within minutes, but spoken words can remain in people's memories for years. An angry message, an impulsive argument, or a careless sentence can damage relationships and opportunities that took years to build. Silence gives you time. It allows emotions to settle before decisions are made. It transforms impulse into intention. That pause is often the difference between wisdom and regret. This does not mean you should remain silent in every situation. There are moments when speaking the truth is necessary. Defending someone is honorable, or expressing your feelings strengthens a relationship. Silence is not about avoiding responsibility. It is about refusing to waste your voice where it will have no positive effect. Wise people know the value of timing. They understand that speaking at the wrong moment can weaken their message, while silence at the right moment can make every future word carry greater weight. Notice how people with genuine confidence rarely feel pressured to fill every quiet moment. They are comfortable with silence because they are comfortable with themselves. They do not panic when others misunderstand them. They do not rush to correct every rumor or respond to every opinion. They trust that consistent actions will eventually reveal the truth. Their confidence comes from within, not from constant validation. As you continue practicing these principles, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop feeling emotionally available to every distraction. Criticism becomes quieter. Negativity loses its grip. The need to defend yourself fades away. Instead of chasing every battle, you begin choosing your peace. Instead of reacting to every opinion, you focus on your purpose. Instead of explaining your value, you let your life demonstrate it. That quiet confidence is impossible to imitate because it is built through discipline rather than performance. And once your silence is no longer a sign of hesitation, but a reflection of inner strength, you become ready to build an identity that no longer depends on anyone else's approval. After learning not to react, refusing the urge to explain yourself, mastering the discipline of strategic ignoring, and discovering the quiet influence of silence, there is one final transformation that must take place within you. None of these habits can become permanent until you stop depending on other people's approval. As long as your confidence is built on praise, acceptance, or recognition, someone else will always have the power to control your emotions. The day you no longer need validation from others is the day you become truly free. From childhood, most people are taught to seek approval. They study harder to receive praise. They work harder to earn recognition. They behave in certain ways because they fear criticism or rejection. Over time, this habit becomes so deeply rooted that they begin measuring their entire worth through the opinions of other people. A compliment makes them feel valuable. A criticism makes them question themselves. Their confidence rises and falls depending on how they are perceived. Without realizing it, they have handed the key to their happiness to everyone except themselves. This is exactly why so many people struggle to follow the principle of never react. Never explain, just ignore. They react because they cannot bear criticism. They explain because they desperately want to be understood. They fail to ignore because they believe every opinion determines their value. The real problem is not what other people say. The real problem is believing that their words define who you are. Imagine carrying a mirror everywhere you go, but instead of reflecting your own face, it reflects only the opinions of those standing around you. One person tells you that you are talented and you smile. Another says you are a failure, and suddenly your confidence disappears. A third questions your decisions, and you immediately begin explaining yourself. If your identity depends on that mirror, your emotional state will constantly change because people change their opinions every day. You will spend your entire life chasing an image that can never remain stable. Now imagine something different. Instead of looking into that mirror, you begin looking inward. Your standards become your guide. Your discipline becomes your proof. Your character becomes your identity. You no longer wake up asking whether people approve of you. You wake up asking whether you remained true to your principles yesterday and whether you will improve today. That simple shift changes everything. People with genuine self-respect understand that they cannot control what others think, but they can control how they respond. They know some people will admire them while others will criticize them no matter what they do. Because of this, they stop trying to satisfy everyone. They stop wasting energy proving themselves. They stop reacting to every negative opinion. Instead, they focus on becoming the kind of person whose actions speak louder than public approval ever could. There is incredible freedom in reaching this point. Imagine how much mental energy is released when you no longer feel obligated to answer every accusation, correct every misunderstanding, or defend every decision. Suddenly, your attention returns to what truly matters: your goals, your growth, your relationships, and your peace of mind. Instead of constantly looking outward for acceptance, you begin building a life that feels meaningful regardless of who applauds it. This does not mean becoming arrogant or believing you are above feedback. Wise people still listen to constructive advice because growth requires humility. But they understand the difference between valuable guidance and empty criticism. They accept lessons without becoming dependent on praise. They remain open to improvement without surrendering their confidence. Their self-worth is built on consistent effort, not on temporary applause. Ironically, this is often the moment people begin respecting you more. When others realize that your confidence cannot be bought with compliments or destroyed with criticism, they see a level of emotional stability that is increasingly rare. You become less predictable because you are no longer controlled by approval. You become calmer because you are no longer trying to impress everyone. You become stronger because your identity is no longer built on fragile opinions. Once you stop seeking validation, reacting feels unnecessary. Explaining yourself feels pointless. Ignoring distractions becomes effortless because your focus is no longer scattered by the voices around you. You understand that your greatest responsibility is not managing your reputation in every person's mind. It is protecting the quality of your own character. And when your worth comes from within, instead of from the approval of others, You are finally prepared to discover why the greatest victories in life belong to those who rise above the noise instead of becoming part of it. Everything you have learned until this point leads to one simple realization. Life is not won by those who react the fastest. It is not won by those who always have the perfect comeback, the longest explanation, or the loudest voice. The greatest victories belong to those who protect their peace, while everyone else is trapped in endless battles that never truly matter. The moment you understand this, your entire approach to life begins to change. You stop seeing every disagreement as a fight you must win. Instead, you begin asking a far more important question. Will this matter a year from now? Most of the time, the answer is no. Think about how much of your life can disappear because of one emotional reaction. One careless reply can destroy years of trust. One impulsive argument can end an opportunity. One desperate explanation can reduce the respect you spent years building. Yet, people repeat this pattern every day because they believe that remaining silent means losing. In reality, the opposite is often true. The person who stays calm while others lose control has already won the most important battle, the battle over their own mind. The world is filled with distractions, disguised as emergencies. Every day, someone wants your attention, someone wants your approval, someone wants you to defend yourself. Someone wants you to join an argument that has nothing to do with your purpose. If you accept every invitation to conflict, you will never have enough energy left to build the life you actually want. This is why successful people become ruthless about protecting their focus. They understand that every unnecessary reaction steals time. Every unnecessary explanation steals confidence. Every unnecessary argument steals momentum. Imagine two people beginning the same journey. One spends years responding to every criticism, proving every point and defending every decision. The other quietly ignores meaningless opinions, lets actions speak louder than words, and remains focused on personal growth. 5 years later, their lives look completely different. The difference is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is where they invested their attention. One invested it in temporary conflicts. The other invested it in becoming stronger every single day. That is the hidden power behind the principle of never react, never explain, just ignore. It is not simply about avoiding arguments. It is about choosing your future over your ego. Every time you refuse to react, you protect your emotional stability. Every time you refuse to explain yourself unnecessarily, you strengthen your self-respect. Every time you ignore what cannot improve your life, you create more space for what truly matters. These small decisions may seem insignificant in the moment, but repeated over months and years, they completely transform your character. There will always be people who misunderstand you. Some will criticize your success because it reminds them of their own excuses. Others will question your choices because they lack the courage to make similar ones. Some will gossip because they have nothing meaningful to create. If you spend your life responding to all of them, you will eventually become a prisoner of opinions that were never meant to guide your future. Freedom begins the moment you realize that not everyone deserves an explanation, not every insult deserves a reaction, and not every voice deserves your attention. One of the greatest signs of maturity is learning to separate what is important from what is merely loud. Noise is everywhere. Social media rewards outrage. Conversations reward drama. Many people mistake constant activity for progress. But real progress often happens in silence. While others argue, you improve. While others seek validation, you build confidence. While others chase approval, you strengthen your discipline. Your results eventually become the answer that no explanation could ever provide. As you continue living by these principles, people will notice something different about you. They may not be able to explain it, but they will feel it. They will see someone who cannot be easily provoked, someone who does not chase arguments, someone who does not waste time proving their worth. That quiet confidence naturally commands respect because it cannot be manipulated. It comes from inner discipline rather than public recognition. Remember, your greatest asset is not your ability to convince people. It is your ability to remain focused on what truly matters. Every unnecessary reaction pulls you away from your purpose. Every unnecessary explanation weakens your authority. Every distraction you refuse to ignore delays the life you are capable of creating. Protect your attention as if it were your most valuable possession, because it is. Where your attention goes, your future follows. So move forward with a calm mind. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Refuse to be controlled by temporary emotions. And remember this whenever life tries to pull you into meaningless conflict. Never react, never explain, just ignore. That is how you protect your peace, preserve your power, and quietly become impossible to